stood near the tall windows of Seven's observation deck and watched the stars. The orbital station floated in neutral space, far from any empire or territory. For 2,000 years, this place had welcomed new species to the galactic community, had seen many first contacts. He had greeted timid explorers and eager traders. He had shaken hands with creatures that had no hands and spoken words of peace to beings that communicated through color and light. Today would be different. Today, the humans were coming. "You seem worried," said Observer, walking up beside him. The merchant was short and covered in gray scales. His large eyes reflected the starlight. "Is the Great nervous about meeting primitives?" Did not smile. His species, rarely showed emotion on their faces, but inside he felt something he had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. "They are not primitives," said quietly. "They reached space on their own. They developed faster than light travel in less than 200 years. They found our communication signals and responded in perfect mathematical language." Made a clicking sound with his tongue. "All young species do these things. The did it. Even my people did it long ago. Humans are simply the children to join the family." "Perhaps," said, but he could not shake the feeling that something was different this time. 3 years ago, human radio signals had reached listening posts. The signals were strange. They contained music, mathematics, and something else: stories of war, images of weapons, records of conflicts that lasted generations. The Council had studied these signals carefully. They had seen species that fought among themselves before. It was common for young civilizations, but humans seemed to have made war into an art form. Still, the Council had voted to make contact. The humans had responded with politeness and curiosity. They had asked good questions. They had shared information about their world, a small blue planet called Earth. They had requested a meeting with the Galactic Assembly. And now they were on their way. "What ship are they bringing?" asked. He was holding a recording device, ready to document everything for his trading guild. "They did not say," admitted. "They only said they would send a diplomatic vessel." "Probably some small shuttle," said with a laugh. "All new species start small. Remember when they arrived in that tiny ship held together with metal strips and hope? They were so proud of it." Remembered. They had come in a ship barely 50 meters long. They had been amazed by the size of the station. They had walked through the corridors with wide eyes, touching the walls like children in a museum. He expected the humans to be the same. Behind them, the doors opened and Station Commander walked in. The administrator was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. He looked worried. "We have a problem," said. "Our sensors have detected the approaching vessel, but the readings are strange." "Strange how?" asked. "The mass readings do not match anything in our database. The energy signature is enormous. And the size—" Paused and checked his data pad. "The size cannot be correct. Our sensors must be broken." Laughed again. "Your sensors are fine, Commander. The humans probably have some unusual engine design. Young species often use inefficient power systems." Shook his head. "You do not understand. The readings show a vessel nearly 3 kilometers long." The observation deck went silent. Felt his heart's beat faster. 3 kilometers. That was larger than most battle stations. That was larger than the colony ships that carried millions of beings across the galaxy. "That cannot be right," said. His voice had lost its humor. "No diplomatic vessel is that size. No trade ship is that size, only." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. "Only warships," said quietly. The warning alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed along the walls. All across the station, beings stopped what they were doing and looked up in confusion. "Faster-than-light exit detected," announced the station's computer system. "Large vessel approaching. All personnel prepare for arrival." Walked closer to the window. His old eyes searched the darkness between the stars. For a moment he saw nothing. The space was empty and quiet. Then the sky tore open. A flash of light appeared, brighter than any star. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as something massive pushed through from faster-than-light travel into normal space. The light faded, and in its place hung a ship. Stopped breathing. The human vessel was enormous. It stretched across the view like a mountain floating in space. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plates thicker than buildings. Weapons lined every surface. Massive cannons pointed in all directions. Missile tubes sat in neat rows along the sides. The ship bristled with death like a creature made entirely of thorns. At the front of the vessel, painted in white letters that seemed to glow against the dark metal, was a name, Hammer of Dawn. "By the ancient stars," whispered. His recording device hung forgotten in his trembling hand. Station commander made a choking sound. That is not a diplomatic vessel, that is a weapon, that is a planet killer." Said nothing. He simply stared at the massive warship as it slowly moved toward the station. He could see smaller ships launching from its sides, tiny compared to the main vessel but still larger than most freighters. Fighter craft, patrol ships, an entire fleet hidden inside one hull. "They brought a warship," said. His scales had turned pale. "They brought a warship to a peace meeting. Why would they do that?" Before could answer, the communication system crackled to life. A young female voice spoke in perfect galactic common, cheerful and bright. "7 Station, this is Lieutenant Park of the Earth vessel Hammer of Dawn. We are escorting Ambassador Min for the scheduled diplomatic meeting, requesting permission to dock. Also, is there anywhere good to eat on the station? Our crew has been traveling for weeks and we are very hungry." The observation deck remained silent. No one knew what to say. Looked at the massive warship, then listened to the friendly voice on the radio. The contrast was so strange that he almost laughed. The humans had sent a weapon capable of destroying the entire station in minutes, and they were asking about food. Said weakly, "What should we do?" Took a deep breath. He was 2,000 years old. He had survived wars, plagues, and the fall of empires. He had seen things that would break most minds. But he had never seen anything like this. "Grant them docking permission," he said finally, "and prepare the welcome ceremony. It seems we have much to learn about our new friends." Through the window, the Hammer of Dawn continued its approach. Its shadow fell across the station like a promise of things to come. The galaxy would never be the same. The docking procedure took 3 hours, not because the humans had difficulty connecting to the station, but because the Hammer of Dawn was too large to use the normal ports. Station engineers had to open the emergency freight bay, a massive section normally reserved for bulk cargo ships. Even then, the human vessel could only extend a single boarding tube to connect with the station. Observer stood in the welcoming hall with the other dignitaries. His scales had returned to their normal gray color, but his hands still shook slightly. He kept glancing at his recording device, checking that it was working. This moment would be studied for centuries. He wanted to capture every detail. Beside him stood perfectly still. The old had not spoken much since the ship arrived. His dark eyes watched the airlock door with an expression that could not read. Station commander paced back and forth, his 4 arms folded across his chest. "This is wrong," he muttered. "This breaks every protocol. New species do not bring warships to first contact. It sends the wrong message." "Perhaps their message is exactly what they intended," said quietly. Before could respond, the airlock hissed. The door slowly opened, revealing a brightly lit corridor beyond. Leaned forward, eager to see his first humans. The first figure through the door was a female. She was smaller than expected, barely taller than a. Her skin was a light brown color, and her black hair was pulled back from her face. She wore a gray uniform with colored patches on her shoulders. A smile stretched across her face as she looked around the welcoming hall. "Hello," she said brightly. I am Lieutenant Park. Welcome to our ship. Well, I guess you are welcoming us to your station. Either way, this is very exciting. Behind her came two more humans. One was a tall male with broad shoulders and a serious face. He wore a darker uniform with more decorations on his chest. The other was an older male with gray hair and kind eyes. His clothing was different, softer and more elegant. I am Ambassador Min, the older male said. He bowed his head slightly. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I thank you for this meeting. Stepped forward. I am of the Collective. I speak for the Galactic Assembly. We welcome you, Ambassador. The two leaders shook hands. Noticed that the human hand had 5 fingers, similar to many species in the galaxy. A good sign for physical compatibility. This is Admiral Sun, Ambassador said, gesturing to the tall male beside him. He commands our vessel. Admiral bowed his head but did not smile. His eyes moved constantly, studying the room, the exits, the other beings present. Recognized that look. He had seen it in soldiers and security officers across the galaxy. The Admiral was assessing threats. Station Commander cleared his throat. Admiral, I must ask about your ship. We were expecting a diplomatic transport, not a warship. Admiral's expression did not change. The Hammer of Dawn is a diplomatic transport, he said. It is also a carrier, a battleship, and a mobile command center. Earth built it to be many things. But why bring such a vessel here, pressed? This is a peaceful station. We have no weapons. Lieutenant Park laughed softly. That is exactly why we brought the Hammer of Dawn, Commander, because you have no weapons. Someone needs to protect this meeting. The aliens exchanged confused looks. Ambassador raised his hand gently. Perhaps I can explain. Humanity has learned hard lessons about the universe. We know that space is vast and dangerous. We know that not all beings wish for peace. When we received your invitation, we were honored, but we were also cautious. Cautious of what? Asked. His recording device pointed at the ambassador. Of everything, Admiral said simply. We do not know what threats exist in this part of the galaxy. We do not know your enemies, your pirates, your dangers, so we came prepared for any situation. Nodded slowly. You built a warship to attend a peace meeting because you assumed the universe was hostile. We assumed nothing, Ambassador said. We simply prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. It is the human way. The welcoming ceremony continued, but noticed that the mood had changed. The other alien dignitaries kept looking at the airlock, as if expecting more human soldiers to pour through. They whispered to each other in their native languages, heard words like threat and danger and mistake. After the formal greetings, approached the human delegation. Ambassador, the Assembly is curious about your vessel. We have never seen anything quite like it. Would you permit a small group to tour the Hammer of Dawn? Ambassador looked at Admiral. Something passed between them, a silent conversation that could not understand. Finally, the Admiral nodded. We would be honored to show you our ship, Ambassador said. Please follow us. They walked through the airlock and into the human vessel, felt the change immediately. The air was different here, slightly warmer and heavier. The walls were made of thick metal with exposed pipes and wires. Everything looked functional, built for purpose rather than beauty. Human crew members passed them in the corridors. They wore identical gray uniforms and moved with quick, purposeful steps. Some carried tools. Others carried weapons. All of them nodded politely to the visiting aliens but did not stop to stare. Your crew seems very disciplined, observed. Admiral allowed himself a small smile. They have trained for many years. A warship requires precision and teamwork. Every person knows their duty. They passed a large window that looked into a massive internal bay, stopped walking and stared. Inside the bay sat dozens of smaller ships lined up in perfect rows. Fighters, bombers, transport craft. An entire air force stored inside the larger vessel. How many small ships does your vessel carry? Asked. This carrier bay holds 72 fighter craft and 24 bomber craft, Lieutenant Park answered cheerfully. We also have 30 transport shuttles and 12 boarding vessels, plus emergency escape pods for all crew members. And your crew numbers how many? The Hammer of Dawn carries 4,800 personnel. His recording device nearly slipped from his hands. Nearly 5,000 beings lived on the ship. That was a small city. That was an invasion force. They continued through the vessel. Every corridor showed more evidence of military purpose. They passed blast doors thick enough to stop artillery. They saw damage control stations with firefighting equipment and emergency medical supplies. They walked by armories locked behind heavy security doors. You build your ships expecting to be attacked, said. It was not a question. We build our ships expecting everything, Admiral replied. Attack, defense, rescue, exploration. A human warship must be ready for any mission in any condition. Finally, they reached an observation lounge near the front of the ship. Large windows showed the stars outside and the station floating nearby. Human crew members sat at tables, eating meals and talking quietly. They looked up as the aliens entered, curious but not unfriendly. Walked to the window and looked out at the station. From here, Seven looked small and fragile. He understood now why the station commander had been so frightened. I have studied your radio signals, said quietly. I know that humans have fought many wars among yourselves. I know that you have created terrible weapons. But I must ask you directly, Admiral, why did you build this ship? What enemy were you preparing to fight? Admiral joined him at the window. For a long moment he did not speak. He said finally, humans have been at war since before we could write. We fought over food, over land, over ideas. We built weapons that could destroy our entire world. We came very close to ending ourselves. He paused, his eyes distant. When we reached space, we looked up at the stars and we wondered, what else is out there? What other dangers wait in the darkness? We did not know. So we built ships like the Hammer of Dawn, not because we wanted war, but because we could not afford to be unprepared. Felt a chill run through his old body. And now that you have met us, he asked, now that you know the galaxy has peaceful species. Admiral turned to face him. His expression was unreadable. Now we are very glad we brought the big ship. The tour continued deeper into the Hammer of Dawn. Had visited many ships in his long life, but nothing had prepared him for this. Every section of the human vessel told the same story, preparation for violence on a scale he had never imagined. Chief Engineer Min led them through the lower decks. She was a small woman with quick hands and bright eyes. She spoke about the ship's systems with obvious pride, like a parent describing a beloved child. The main reactor produces enough power to run a medium-sized colony, said. She pointed through a reinforced window at a massive chamber filled with glowing machinery. We use fusion technology combined with magnetic containment fields. Very stable, very efficient. And very powerful, Observer noted. He was recording everything, his device pointed at the reactor chamber. What do you need such power for? Smiled, everything. Life support, engines, shields, weapons. A warship must be self-sufficient. We can operate for 3 years without resupply if necessary. They moved on to the weapons deck. Felt his hearts beat faster as they walked past row after row of missile tubes. Each tube was sealed behind heavy doors marked with warning symbols. Human soldiers stood guard at regular intervals, their eyes watching the alien visitors carefully. These are our secondary weapons, explained casually. Long-range missiles with various warhead types, explosive, electromagnetic, kinetic. We carry over 2,000 in our storage bays. Secondary weapons, repeated. What are the primary weapons? Led them to a massive turret housing. Through armored glass, they could see the base of an enormous cannon stretching up through multiple decks. Rail guns, she said. We have 6 main batteries, each capable of launching projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. They can punch through almost any armor from extreme range. Made a choking sound. Rail guns are banned by the Galactic Treaty on Destructive Weapons. They cause too much collateral damage. Lieutenant Park tilted her head. We did not sign that treaty. We did not know it existed until last year. Should we remove our guns? The question hung in the air. No one knew how to answer it. They continued through the ship. They saw the fighter bays where pilots sat in their cockpits, running training simulations. They saw the Marine barracks where human soldiers exercised with weights and combat drills. They saw the medical bay, large enough to treat hundreds of wounded at once. Your ship seems designed for extended combat, observed. You expect your battles to last long and cause many casualties. Admiral, who had been silent for most of the tour, finally spoke. We expect battles to be unpredictable. Sometimes they end quickly. Sometimes they drag on for weeks. A good commander prepares for both. Sergeant First Class I.M. joined them outside the Marine barracks. She was a tall woman with short hair and scars on her hands. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone very dangerous. Would you like to see our training facilities? She asked. Her voice was polite, but her eyes were hard. They entered a large room filled with exercise equipment. Human soldiers were running on machines, lifting heavy weights, and practicing hand-to-hand combat on padded mats. The sounds of effort and impact filled the air. Your soldiers train in physical combat, noted. Most species rely entirely on weapons and technology. Technology can fail, Sergeant Im said simply. Power can run out, weapons can jam, but these hands never stop working. She held up her fists, which were covered in old calluses. Every Marine on this ship can fight with or without weapons. We train for the worst moments when everything else has gone wrong. Observer watched 2 soldiers sparring on a mat. They moved fast, striking and blocking with practiced precision. How long do your soldiers train? Basic training takes 6 months. Specialized Marine training takes another year. After that, we train every day for the rest of our careers. Fighting is a skill that must be maintained. The aliens exchanged uneasy looks. Their own military forces existed, of course, but soldiers were considered a last resort, used only when diplomacy failed completely. The idea of training warriors every single day seemed extreme. They left the training room and entered a quieter section of the ship. The corridors here were different, painted in softer colors with artwork hanging on the walls. Saw pictures of landscapes, cities, and people. Some were photographs. Others were paintings done by hand. This is our crew living area, Lieutenant Park explained. Soldiers need rest too. We try to make this section feel like home. They passed a room with an open door. Inside, saw plants, dozens of them growing in containers under artificial lights. A human crew member was carefully watering them with a small can. A garden said, on a warship. On every warship, Ambassador corrected. We learned long ago that humans need nature to stay healthy. Even in space, even during war, we need green things to remind us of home. Stepped into the garden room, his recording device capturing the plants. You build weapons capable of destroying cities, but you also grow flowers. I do not understand your species. Lieutenant Park laughed. Neither do we sometimes. They finished the tour in a conference room near the bridge. Human officers served drinks and small foods to the alien guests. Noticed that the humans had researched what each species could safely eat. The attention to detail was impressive. Sat across from Admiral and Ambassador. The question that had been building inside him finally escaped. I have seen your ship, he said. I have seen your weapons and your soldiers and your preparations for war, but I still do not understand something fundamental. What happened to your world that made you build such things? What enemy forced you to become this? The room went quiet. Admiral and Ambassador looked at each other. "No enemy," Ambassador said finally. Frowned, "I do not understand." "We were our own enemy," the Ambassador explained. "Humans have fought humans for all of recorded history. Thousands of years of wars between nations, between peoples, between ideas. We nearly destroyed ourselves many times." "But why?" asked. "What could cause such constant conflict?" Admiral leaned forward. "Many things. Resources at first, food and water and land. Later power and control. Sometimes religion or philosophy. Sometimes simple hatred of those who are different." "We are not proud of our history," Ambassador admitted. "We have done terrible things to each other, but we have also learned from our mistakes. Each war taught us new lessons about destruction and survival." "And so you built weapons like this ship," said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn. "Not to fight aliens, to fight each other." "The Hammer of Dawn was designed to defend Earth from any threat," Admiral said. "External or internal. We hoped we would never need ships like this. But we built them anyway because hope is not a strategy." Sat back in his chair. For 2,000 years, he had watched young species join the galaxy. Most of them were peaceful, having united their worlds through cooperation and shared purpose. They built warships only after encountering external threats. But humans were different. They had forged themselves in endless war. They had learned to fight before they learned to fly, and now they had brought that terrible knowledge to the stars. Ambassador said gently, "I know this is difficult to hear, but I want you to understand something important. Yes, we are warriors. Yes, we build weapons of terrible power, but we are also more than that." He gestured around the conference room, at the artwork on the walls and the carefully prepared food. "We are artists and gardeners. We are teachers and healers. We create music and poetry and beautiful things. War is part of our nature, but it is not all of our nature. We came here hopping to find friends, not enemies. We brought the big ship because we were afraid, not because we wanted to fight." Studied the Ambassador's face. He saw sincerity there and something else, hope. Before he could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Bridge to Admiral. We have detected 3 unidentified vessels approaching at high speed. They are not responding to hails. Their weapons are powered." The Admiral stood immediately, his face transforming from diplomat to warrior in an instant. "How long until they reach the station?" 12 minutes, sir." Felt fear grip his hearts. What is happening? Admiral was already moving toward the door. "It seems we are about to demonstrate exactly why we brought the big ship. First look at a human warship leaves aliens in shock, Part 4. The bridge of the Hammer of Dawn was a storm of controlled chaos. Human officers moved between stations, their voices sharp and professional. Display screens showed sensor data, weapon status, and tactical maps. Admiral stood at the center of it all, calm as stone in a river. And the other alien visitors had been brought to an observation area at the side of the bridge. They watched in stunned silence as the humans prepared for battle. 3 vessels confirmed, reported a young officer at the sensor station. Configuration matches known pirate designs. They are accelerating toward the station. "Pirates," station commander whispered. His face had turned pale blue. "The clan. They prey on new species arriving at the station. They think humans will be easy targets." "They think wrong," Admiral said quietly. He pressed a button on his command chair. "All hands battle stations. This is not a drill. I repeat, battle stations." Alarms sounded throughout the ship. The lighting changed from white to red. Human crew members ran through the corridors, taking their positions with practiced speed. "Sir, the pirate vessels are broadcasting a message," Lieutenant Park reported. "They are demanding that we surrender the human delegation. They say they want to evaluate the newcomers." "Slavers," Sergeant Iam growled. She had appeared on the bridge with a squad of armed Marines. They want to capture humans and sell them. Admiral's expression did not change. Open a channel to the pirates. The main screen flickered, showing the face of an alien did not recognize. The creature had rough gray skin and small black eyes. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth arranged in a permanent smile. "Human ship," the pirate said, its voice crackling through the speakers. "You are new to this region of space. You do not understand how things work here. Surrender your crew and your vessel and we will let some of you live. Resist, and we will tear your ship apart and sell the pieces." The bridge went silent. Every human officer stopped moving. They all looked at Admiral. The Admiral smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I am Admiral Son of the Earth vessel Hammer of Dawn. I have a counteroffer. Turn your ships around and leave this area immediately. If you do not, I will destroy your vessels and capture your crews. You have 60 seconds to decide." The pirate captain laughed. "Foolish primitive. Your ship is large, yes, but we have seen large ships before. They all break the same way. You have no idea what you are facing." "Neither do you," Admiral said. He cut the communication channel and turned to his officers. "Helm, move us between the station and the incoming vessels. Weapons, charge all batteries. Fighters, prepare for launch but hold in the bays." Observer was recording everything, his hands shaking. "Admiral, perhaps we should negotiate. The clan is dangerous. They have destroyed many ships over the years." "Then they have had a good run," Admiral replied. "It ends today." The Hammer of Dawn began to move. Through the bridge windows, watched the stars shift as the massive warship positioned itself in front of the station. The three pirate vessels appeared as small dots in the distance, growing larger as they approached. "They are not changing course," reported the sensor officer. "They think we are bluffing." "Let them think that." Admiral sat down in his command chair and folded his hands. "All weapons, target the lead vessel. Fire on my command." Felt his heart's pounding. He had seen battles before, long ago, but he had never been inside a warship during combat. He had never watched a species he had just met prepare to kill and die. "Admiral," he said urgently, "is there no other way? Perhaps if we contacted the Galactic Fleet." "The nearest Galactic Fleet vessel is 3 days away," Station Commander said miserably. "I checked when we first detected the pirates. We are on our own." "You are not on your own," Admiral said firmly. "You are with us." The pirate vessels entered weapons range. On the tactical display, could see them spreading out, preparing to attack from multiple angles. It was a standard pirate tactic, designed to overwhelm defenders. "They are launching missiles," reported the weapons officer. 24 incoming. "Point defense engage." The Hammer of Dawn came alive with fire. Smaller weapons along its hull began tracking the incoming missiles. Bright lines of energy flashed through space, each one finding its target. Explosions bloomed in the darkness like brief flowers. In less than 10 seconds, all 24 missiles were destroyed. The bridge was silent except for the quiet hum of machinery. The alien visitors stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "They have never seen point defense like that," whispered. "No one in this region has weapons that fast." The pirate vessels hesitated. Their formation wavered as they tried to understand what had just happened. "Admiral, the lead pirate vessel is attempting to retreat," Lieutenant Park reported. "They had their chance," Admiral said. His voice was cold. "Main batteries fire." The Hammer of Dawn shuddered as its massive rail guns discharged. Projectiles screamed across space faster than the eye could follow. They struck the lead pirate vessel with terrible precision. The pirate ship did not explode. It simply came apart. The hull cracked open like an egg, spilling atmosphere and debris into the void. Its engines died. Its weapons went dark. In 3 seconds, the vessel went from a threatening warship to a drifting wreck. The other 2 pirate vessels tried to run. They turned and accelerated, their engines flaring bright with desperate power. Targeting second vessel, the weapons officer said calmly, firing. Another rail gun barrage. Another pirate ship torn apart. This one did explode as its reactor failed, creating a brief sun in the darkness. The third vessel screamed across open space, trying to reach faster-than-light escape velocity. Admiral watched it for a moment, then shook his head. Disable their engines. Marines prepare to board. A precise shot from a smaller weapon struck the fleeing ship's engine section. The vessel lurched and began to drift. It was still intact, but it was going nowhere. Launch boarding craft, Admiral ordered. Two angular ships detached from the hammer of Dawn's sides. They rocketed toward the disabled pirate vessel, their hulls bristling with weapons. Sergeant IM's voice came over the communication system. Boarding team away. We will secure the vessel and capture the crew. Estimated time 15 minutes. The bridge was silent. The entire battle had lasted less than 3 minutes. Station commander sat down heavily on the floor. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. That is not possible, he whispered. The clan has terrorized this region for decades. You destroyed them in minutes. Admiral stood and straightened his uniform. We did not destroy them. We stopped them. The Marines will capture the survivors and bring them back for trial. You are not going to kill them? Asked, surprised. They are no longer a threat. There is no need to kill them. The Admiral looked at. Humanity has learned many hard lessons about war. One of the most important is knowing when to stop fighting. We use overwhelming force to end conflicts quickly, but we do not kill those who surrender. We believe in justice, not revenge. Stared at the human commander. He had just watched this man order the destruction of 2 ships without hesitation, and now he was talking about mercy and justice. You are a confusing species, admitted. Admiral almost smiled. We get that a lot. 15 minutes later, Sergeant IM reported in. Pirate vessel secured. We have 42 prisoners, including the captain. No casualties on either side. They surrendered as soon as we breached the hull. Bring them to the station brig, Admiral ordered. Commander, I believe these pirates fall under galactic law. We will transfer them to your custody for trial. Was still sitting on the floor, staring at nothing. You are giving them to us, after what just happened. They attacked your station. They should face your justice. Admiral extended a hand to help the commander stand. That is how civilized species behave, is it not? Watched the exchange carefully. He was beginning to understand humans a little better now. They were warriors, yes. They were dangerous beyond measure, but they were also principled. They fought hard but fairly. They showed mercy to the defeated. Perhaps that was the most frightening thing of all. A species that could destroy without hesitation but chose restraint instead. A species that built weapons of terrible power but used them with careful precision. The galaxy had just learned what humanity could do. And this was only the beginning. The observation deck of 7 was crowded with beings from a dozen different species. They had all come to see the human ship with their own eyes. News of the battle had spread across the station in minutes. Everyone wanted to witness the vessel that had destroyed the clan. The hammer of dawn hung in space outside the windows, its dark hull gleaming in the light of distant stars. It looked no different than before, showing no signs of the brief combat. The weapon that had terrorized pirates for years had not even scratched its armor. Observer stood near the window reviewing his recordings. His hands no longer trembled. The shock had faded, replaced by something else. Wonder, perhaps, or fear. He was not sure which. Approached him. The old moved slowly, as if carrying a great weight. What will you do with your recordings? Asked. Looked up. I will send them to my guild. They will distribute them to every major trading hub in the sector. Within a week, the entire region will know about the humans and their ship. And what will you tell them? Was silent for a moment. He looked out at the massive warship and thought carefully about his words. I will tell them the truth, he said finally. A new species has arrived in our galaxy. They call themselves humans. They come from a small blue world where they have fought each other for thousands of years. They have built weapons of terrible power. They have trained soldiers who know no fear. They have brought a ship to our space that could conquer planets. He paused, his recording device held tight in his hands. And I will tell them that these humans came in peace. They asked for friendship. They defended our station against pirates without being asked. They captured their enemies alive and handed them over for trial. They did not demand payment or tribute or submission. They simply did what was right. Nodded slowly. That is a fair summary. It is the truth, said. And I think the truth about humans is more powerful than any weapon they could build. On the other side of the observation deck, Ambassador Min was speaking with representatives from several species. His voice was gentle and patient as he explained human culture, history, and hopes for the future. Lieutenant Park stood beside him, translating when needed and adding cheerful comments that made the alien smile. Admiral Sun stood apart from the group, watching the station through the windows. Sergeant I.M. approached him with 2 cups of hot tea. She handed one to him without speaking. They drank in silence for a moment. The prisoners are secured, I.M. said finally. The station guard seemed surprised that we kept them alive. They expected us to be savage, replied. Many species assume that violent beings cannot also be civilized. Can we be both? Considered the question. I believe so. Violence is a tool like any other. What matters is how we choose to use it. He looked at the station, at the alien beings going about their daily lives. We could have destroyed the entire pirate fleet. We could have killed every enemy we faced, but that would have sent the wrong message. What message did we send instead? That humanity is not to be threatened, but also that humanity is not to be feared. Sipped his tea. At least not by those who mean us no harm. Station commander had finally recovered from his shock. He walked through the observation deck, thanking the human delegation repeatedly. His 4 hands kept gesturing nervously as he spoke. You must understand, he said to Ambassador, the clan has been a problem for 30 years. The Galactic Fleet has tried to stop them many times. Always they escape, always they return. But you ended them in minutes. Minutes. We did not end them, Ambassador corrected gently. We stopped them. Their fate is now in your hands. Yes, yes, but the point remains. Your ship is remarkable, terrifying, but remarkable, wrung his hands. I must ask, Ambassador, does Earth have more ships like this? The observation deck went quiet. Every alien present turned to hear the answer. Ambassador smiled. The Hammer of Dawn is one of 7 ships in its class. We also have smaller vessels, patrol ships, fighters, and support craft. Our fleet continues to grow as our resources allow. 7 ships, 7 vessels that could each destroy fleets and conquer worlds. The aliens exchanged nervous looks. And what do you intend to do with such a fleet? Asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Protect Earth, Ambassador answered simply. Explore the galaxy, defend our friends and allies, and hopefully make new ones. Studied the human's face for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He laughed. Ambassador, you are either the most honest diplomat I have ever met or the most skilled liar. He shook his head, still chuckling. Either way, I believe working with humanity will be interesting. We prefer interesting to boring, Lieutenant Park said brightly. Boring is bad for morale. The formal diplomatic meetings continued for 3 more days. Treaties were discussed. Trade agreements were outlined. Cultural exchanges were planned. The humans proved to be capable negotiators, firm but fair in their dealings. On the final day, requested a private meeting with Admiral. They met in a small conference room overlooking the station's central hub. Admiral, I have a question that has been troubling me, said. When you first arrived, we expected a small ship, a humble delegation. Instead, you brought the largest warship any of us had ever seen. Why? Was quiet for a moment, because we were afraid. Afraid of what? You have the most powerful vessel in the region. We did not know that when we left Earth, leaned forward in his chair. When humanity first received your signals, we were excited. Finally, proof that we were not alone in the universe, but we were also terrified. What if the aliens were hostile? What if they had technology that made ours look primitive? What if they wanted to conquer or destroy us? So you built warships. We already had warships. We simply made them bigger, shook his head. Humanity has survived by preparing for the worst. We cannot help it. Our history taught us that trust must be earned, that strength deters aggression, that hope without preparation is foolishness. Nodded slowly. And now that you have met us, now that you have seen we are not a threat. Now we are glad we came prepared, said. Those pirates would have captured our delegation if we had arrived in a smaller ship. Your station would have been raided. Lives would have been lost. He met's eyes. Our caution saved lives today. That is enough justification for me. Sat back in his chair. He had lived for 2,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species destroy themselves and others reach for the stars. But he had never seen anything quite like humanity. Admiral, I have one more question. You said that humanity has been at war since before you could write. You said you nearly destroyed yourselves many times. How did you survive? How did you make it this far without wiping yourselves out? Was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. We learned. Every war, every conflict, every terrible mistake. We learned from it. We learned that victory without peace is just another kind of defeat. We learned that the strongest weapon is not a gun or a bomb, but a choice. The choice to stop fighting. The choice to reach out instead of strike. The choice to build instead of destroy. He looked out the window at the hammer of dawn, floating silent and powerful in the darkness. We are warriors, we will always be warriors, but we are also dreamers. We dream of a future where our children do not know war. We build weapons hoping we will never need them. We train soldiers hoping they will never fight. He turned back to, is that strange, perhaps, but it is who we are. It is what makes us human. Was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Welcome to the galaxy, Admiral. I think you will find that even with all our differences, we have much to learn from each other. Stood and shook his hand firmly. I think you are right, and I look forward to every lesson. Outside the window, the hammer of dawn waited in the darkness, ready for whatever came next. Its weapons were silent. Its crew was at peace, but everyone who saw it knew the truth. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.